everybody, and welcome to John's Rants. I'm John Giardinelli of Tyler Law, and we're doing our rant today on some of the rollout issues that have come up over the last couple of days. I'm recording this on August the 20th, and so we've had a few days now of things. I spoke with the MLS attorney yesterday, truly great lawyer, and he told me about a couple things to be careful of. So before we jump into today's topic, which is going to be open houses, I wanted to tell you about a couple things. First of all, some of you took listings with the new RLA, which came out on July 24th, but the new rules didn't go to effect until August 13th. And there have been some listings where mistakes are being made. And let me tell you what the mistake is. And it's an easy one to fix, but you got to fix it. You executed the new RLA, and the seller agreed to pay you a percentage or a dollar figure. Now, there is no place in the new RLA for buyer side compensation, but the rule that disallows offers of buyer side compensation by the listing agent didn't go into effect until last week. And so some of you were thinking, well, I'm going to go ahead and offer compensation for at least a short while, but you're putting in the figure that the seller's paying you, which means that when you get to closing, technically speaking, there's not going to be any money for you. So you need to go back and fix that. Make sure that you're getting paid your percentage, and then work out something with the seller. And now that the rules have gone into effect, make sure they're settlement compliant, that if you're going to do commission sharing, well, you can't do it on the MLS. So you need to take that off of the MLS. And then if you insist on offering compensation, it has to be done off site or off the MLS. Make sure you didn't make that mistake. Apparently it's being made by enough people that it caught CRMLS's attention. Be careful of your off MLS ads. We're seeing a lot of ads go out, even some companies that are setting up what appear to me to be sort of quasi MLS sites. Be very careful about that. First of all, talk to your lawyer, because the Department of Justice has not gone away, and they don't want commission sharing. Period. End of story. They've made it very clear in a case in Boston and some of the briefs they filed. They're happy that commission sharing is off of the MLS, but they want it to be gone completely. So make sure when you do your advertising, if you insist on doing commission sharing proposals, that they be completely off the MLS, they be completely truthful, and that they be accurate. Good news is that so far, there have been very few problems in terms of violations and other issues, and that's pretty much true nationwide. Both Housing Wire and Inman reported that there have been very few quote unquote horror stories that have been going on around the country. So I know I looked at some stuff here in Tennessee where I am now, and I haven't seen too many problems here in the Nashville area. And of course, Ed has pretty much most of Southern California, and he's not seeing any real significant issues either. But we are getting a lot of questions about open houses. And so I thought I would zero in on that topic today and just give you a couple of pointers that will hopefully help you as we transition into this brave new world. And I've talked to leadership and what we're going to be doing over the next couple of months on issues such as open houses, unrepresented buyers, compensation versus concession, what that means and what it doesn't mean, all those things. And we're going to do little mini classes, record them on best practices as these issues evolve and as we see what kinds of problems we're experiencing in the field. So if you have an issue, you have a problem, probably the best thing you can do is send an email to either myself, JVG, at Tyler, Tyler Law, LLP, that's JVG at tylerlawllp.com, or to Lori Smith at Professional Standards. She'll get those to me. We'll start looking and figuring out where we go. I won't hesitate to contact the MLS attorney. And of course, they have a resource page as well. So don't be afraid to ask questions. Nobody is your enemy. Everybody wants you to succeed. And we just want to make sure that these settlements are adhered to. So let's talk about open houses for a second. First question, do I have to ask for a BRBC when I get an offer, or if a buyer is indicating that they are working with another broker, or if a broker shows up at my open house? And the answer is no, you are not the police. It is the MLS's job. If for some reason you believe that a buyer rep is not got a valid BRBC or some other type of written buyer representation agreement, report it to the multiple listing service. Let them handle it, not your job. Okay, I would both CAR, the defense counsel that represents your risk management interest, including myself, all agree it is not a best practice to ask for a BRBC. Now, if they are asking you to cover some portion of their commissions, then yes, you can either ask for the BRBC to establish what they're being paid, so you don't end up paying more than you're supposed to, or simply ask for page 5 of the BRBC. As far as open houses, you continue to conduct them just like you did in the past, with a couple of minor changes. First of all, remember, when you're conducting an open house, you are representing the seller. So if a buyer comes in, while it's a good practice to ask them to sign a form I'm going to talk about, it is not mandatory. You can still let them see the house. Just be careful, and I'll go over how to be careful right now, but be careful. But as far as allowing them to come in, allowing them to tour the house, you don't represent them, you represent the seller. And that is who you owe a fiduciary duty to. That is who you've got a signed contract with. And that is whose property you are trying to market and sell. So the open house form, which came out on July 24th, is not a mandatory form. It is a recommended form. It has been created out of an abundance of caution, and I agree 100% with doing it. But it was created because the settlement agreement is ambiguous. The settlement agreement says you are to have a written agreement, quote unquote, before touring, right? And so touring, does that mean allowing somebody to see an open house, or does it mean piling in the van and going around neighborhoods looking at properties that you've pulled off of the MLS? So out of an abundance of caution, they've made a form available to you that is like a registry form that will allow you to have something confirming in writing that you're not talking about compensation, that you are not representing them, that information that they give you is not to be held confidential, and that you are not their agent for any purpose whatsoever. You are simply there as the host or hostess of an open house. You should always ask, and the forms that are available help you, but at least ask, are you represented by an agent, buyer, prospective buyer, looky-loo, whoever comes in, and you always want to ask, have you seen the house before? Have you seen it with another agent? Because if the answer to that question is yes, then you want to find out, did they sign any type of a broker compensation agreement? Have they obligated themselves to pay? Has the agent been in the property? Have they toured it? Any of those kinds of questions. So you always want to find out, because it may very well be that if you become aware that there is a prospective buyer broker that is representing these people pursuant to a written agreement, and these people start expressing real interest in purchasing the property, you may want to go back to that agent and make sure that you understand the relationship and whether the relationship is ongoing and all of those kinds of factors, to save yourself some heartache down the road if someone comes in to claim commission or that they were involved with the property, as is further defined in the BRBC. You also want to be careful that you don't create in the mind of that prospective buyer some form of agency, right? You are representing and have a fiduciary duty to the seller. You do not have a fiduciary duty to the person looking at the property. You are not giving them legal advice. You're not, excuse me, real estate advice. You are not guiding them. You are not their agent. And the open house form says that. If things get a little more, and again, this is where we're going to have to look at best practices, because, you know, obviously there's sort of a sliding scale. When they first come in, hello, how are you? Take a cookie, go look at the house. Here's an information sheet, all that stuff. However you conduct that, we're pretty clearly not anywhere close to any form of an agency relationship. But if things heat up, when you hope they do, obviously, because you'd like to get the house sold, and I would imagine that's the purpose of your open house, then you may start getting some questions, and you need to make it clear that you are not their agent. You have a duty to be honest and truthful. That's always the case with all parties that are prospective parties to a transaction, whether it be the lender, the client, whoever, but you do not have a fiduciary relationship with them that creates much more obligation on your part. So you want to be careful about creating an agency relationship. There are several kinds. I'm not going to give you a law school lecture, but there's express agency, and that is created in the context of your world by a written listing agreement or by some form of a written buyer side agreement. Once that's created, now we have an express agency. Their fees have been worked out, all that kind of stuff under the new rules. But sometimes the buyer may not think that you're simply acting for the seller, and that you are in fact creating that level of confidence, that level of expectation that says, you know what, this guy is representing me. This guy is giving me advice I can rely on, take to the bank, giving me information, doing all sorts of stuff. He's my realtor. He's created a real estate relationship, and that's an implied agency. You don't want that. You're not getting paid for it. Now, when you signed the RLA, maybe the buyer, excuse me, the seller said, you know what? I'm going to check off this box, and if you do represent an unrepresented buyer, I'll pay you a little bit extra, and that amount is placed in the RLA. But in a situation where they come in, they don't want to hire an agent, they don't want to pay an agent, they don't want to sign a BRBC, you don't want to be their agent. You're not getting paid for it. You're incurring the same amount of liability. So it's a good idea to either give them that form, the open house form, or to give them, and it's been around for quite a long time, for at least 2 years, the buyer non-agency agreement. We have one for the buyer, one for the seller. There's a seller non-agency agreement as well. So you want to make sure that you get something signed, or at least give them and document your file if they refuse to sign, that says, I'm not your agent. Now, if they do refuse to sign, that should be a red flag to you that we could have a controversy down the line and start documenting your file, protecting yourself. Obviously, the goal is to sell the property at a fair price on terms acceptable to your seller and all of that. But by the same token, you don't want to step into a minefield unknowingly. So you need to document your file and be very careful. Understand that this just started a couple of days ago. All these rules, which have changed the dynamics to a great degree in terms of how people get paid and all of the expectations and all that. And so it's going to take a while for us to see how it works in the field, you know, and that's why we're going to rely on you to let us know, because if you don't let us know, well, I'm not going to know. Certainly Lori's not going to know. We need to let us know how things are in the field, and when an issue comes up, don't hesitate. Don't hesitate to let us know what happened and how we can help you. So the form I've been referring to is the OHNA-SI, and it is the form that will allow you to show properties at open houses. It is actually entitled the Open House Visitor Non-Agency Disclosure and Sign-In. It's got 5 little paragraphs and then places for people to sign. And frankly, the way I'm looking at it, I'm not sure that that's a good idea, but you could have several different couples sign it. Visitors agents can sign it. And so it's a little one-page document. I would have it signed individually, but that's going to be your call. You have a guest book now. This is not that much different. It's not that big a deal. It doesn't create any obligation for anybody. So take a look at that form, and if possible, get them to sign it. At a minimum, give it to them, so and make it clear that that you are not their agent. There's also another form that's available. It's called the Property Showing and Representation Agreement, or the PSRA, and it is a little bit longer. It's a 3-page document, but this document is if you're going to actually show them property as a representative. It's good for, it's different than the BRBC, which is pretty much unlimited. This is for 3 specific types of property. It's limited to 30 days instead of 90. And it does provide that if they purchase one of the properties that you show them, that it is going to be for compensation. And so you want to take a look at that form. It is a limited version of a BRBC. Doesn't have nearly all of the things that the BRBC has, but it's a pretty darn good form. So again, in looking at the forms that are available, you have the OHNA, you have the PSAR, you have the buyer non-agency, and of course you always have a BRBC if you choose to use that. Now, a couple of other things. If they refuse to sign, use caution, be very careful, because suddenly these people may not trust you. They may have ulterior motives. We don't know. You're going to have information sheets. You may even want to have them sign an information sheet and put some of the verbiage that's from the form onto your information sheet, so that those disclosures are there. And remember, don't, until you're comfortable that you are creating an agency relationship, which means a fiduciary relationship, don't provide any advice. It is totally okay to let them use your RPA. They fill it out themselves, not a problem. But be careful that, again, in my world, sometimes we'll have cases where one side is unrepresented. We call them pro-pers, right? And so these people, these unrepresented agents, are in a very different kind of way. Pro-pers, you can give them information, but you can't give them advice. and you don't act as their agent. And as I said, we'll continue to sort this out as we move forward. So with that in mind, hopefully I've answered a few of your questions, but I'm sure there are many, many more. Feel free to contact us. Again, I don't normally do this, but I'm going to do it now because we really, really do want you to be well versed and comfortable. You got enough to worry about and enough to learn, and the association is adamantly dedicated to making sure that we keep you as comfortable as possible. So again, my email address is jvg, John Victor Giardinelli, jvg at Tyler, Tyler, law, llp.com.